All right, hello everybody in our Get Strong Move Right group. I've asked my better half here to join me for a little training tips video, if you will. I want to share a couple of things with you that I hope will help as you continue to progress through this circuit. The first is the topic of shoulder packing. And this idea, and I've mentioned it a number of times, and I think I also talk about it in some of the other videos, but I want to just take a second and kind of explain what's going on here. So we've got the shoulder girdle. I'm going to spin Terry around. And what we want to try to do in all of the movements that we're working through in this circuit in particular is we want to not only engage the superficial muscles of the shoulder or the hip, but we really want to tie the entire trunk into all of these exercises. And in the process, establish good posture, if you will, right? So I'm going to ask Terry to her shoulder blades are here, is just pinch these shoulder blades together a little bit. And when you do that, you start to fire and engage the larger muscles of the back. There are actually 17 muscles that attach to your shoulder blades here. We want them all working. We spin her around, and as she pinches those shoulder blades together, I'm going to ask her to drop her shoulders away from her ears. So it really is a postural change where we go from here to here to here. You'll feel your chest lift as you engage these muscles in the back. This is what we want to do. And in the process of doing that, in very simple terms, we keep this arm bone inside this socket and protected, centrated, if you will. And we'll fire everything up through the back and the trunk and protect the shoulders in the process. Tara, go ahead and lie down right here. I want to demonstrate one way in which this creates much better stability of the shoulder girdle and better engagement through the entire back muscles. So I typically will demonstrate this for folks when I want to give them a sense of how this feels. So I'm going to ask Terry, just relax your arm here, and I'm going to tug a little bit and just pull on her arm, and in the process pull on the shoulder. So as you can see, everything is just very loosey-goosey right here. I'm just letting that arm float around inside that capsule, and honestly, there's not a lot of protection right here for the shoulder or the back, as it were, right? Lots of mobility, but not very much protection. And if I were to pull hard, I could really do some damage and hurt her, which I don't want to do, of course. But what we're looking at here is a pretty unstable and not very connected or integrated shoulder girdle. So now I'm going to ask Tara, go ahead and drop your shoulders away from your ears and just pinch those shoulder blades together. And you're probably seeing, as you see your chest lift a little bit, everything is a little more engaged. She's showing us better posture on the floor. And now I'm going to go ahead and yank on that arm. And you can see that I can literally pick her right up off the floor here. She's very much protected. So focusing on, lowering the shoulders away from the ears and just creating that integration through the back is exactly what we're looking for. So let's transition. Find your mini band. Here we go. Let's transition to the table bridge with that in mind. So I want to share just a couple of tips about the table bridge. We'll talk a little bit about the shoulders and integrating that shoulder packing, if you will. And also, most importantly, what I want to talk about is the middle. So very often, actually scooch back a little bit if you would, Tara. The idea with the table bridge is to create a true hip hinge. So we're looking at her hip joint as literally a skewer. And everything from the hip to the shoulder, we want to maintain one solid piece of steel. The reality is that so many of us, when we're doing movements, exercises, or even working through the course of our life, sometimes sitting in a chair, to be honest with you, so much of the issues that we have culturally with back pain come from the fact that we move through our spine rather than really utilizing our hips as the hinge that it's so eloquently and beautifully designed to be. It isn't that the spine can't move or shouldn't move, but when we want to load our bodies, we want our hip girdle, where the largest muscles in our body reside, to be our driver. And this exercise, this movement, is a great way to teach that hip hinge and also to reinforce a neutral, low back and engaged core to create that solid piece of steel that is our trunk. So Terry's set up here. Show me poor posture in this position. So you're going to let your shoulders kind of just, yeah, exactly. So you can see how her shoulders are riding up into her ears. Right now, if she loads herself here, she's going to have a risk of impingement here and some pain. This is what I've seen in a few of the videos, so this is not the position we want to be in. We want to avoid this. So go ahead and create that good engagement. So she's pinching those shoulder blades together. You can see everything locked in very nicely. All right, relax here. Now when you're setting up the table bridge, you want your feet to be hip width apart. And I would ask you all to continue to drive your knees out as well, okay? We want to keep constant tension on the band and constant tension in an exterior rotated position or an abducted position. So driving the knees out against the band makes it harder, but a lot more effective. So I'm going to ask Terry to perform one rep, and I'm going to place my hands on her belly and in her low back. And this is really a reminder that everything here needs to be solid. No twisting, no bending through the spine. I'm also going to ask her to imagine that she's lifting from her chest when she pushes up to the ceiling, and when she lowers, to lead with the butt first. These are good basic cues that we can use in our own mind's eye to envision or visualize how we want this movement to happen. Remember, in the beginning, we're patterning the movement. The first thing you want to do when you're learning a new skill is just pattern it, perform it correctly. Once you get that pattern drilled in and begin to make it your default pattern in terms of how you're moving, then you can start to load the movement. And that's exactly what we'll do with the table bridge. All right, so neutral low back, engaged core. I'm going to keep my hands here. Go ahead and press up, Tara. Lift from the chest, keep everything nice and solid. Now I'm actually blocking her view, so she can't see in the mirror, but I'm going to go ahead and come around to the other side and let her actually watch what she's doing. Lower butt first, come right back down to the floor. Keep everything nice and solid. Excellent. Let me come around to the other side and give you a chance to actually see what you're doing here. We'll leave you in the camera. Again, neutral low back, engaged core. So watch that everything from your hip to your shoulder, with that fully engaged back, everything is one solid piece of steel, one straight line. All right, come on up. All right, very nice, nicely done. Squeeze here, drive the knees out, keep the shoulders engaged. Now lower butt first. Butt first. Excellent. All right, nice work. So I hope that helps in terms of a few things to really focus on in terms of patterning this movement correctly. I've got one more tip for this exercise which I want to share, and go ahead and give me the band, Tara. I thought I had the black band here, but apparently not. So I'm going to share one additional tip with you guys while the camera's running. Thank you, Tara. Just double check to make sure that the camera's giving us a good view. All right, excellent. So one tip. So with my coached athletes, what I will often do with those folks is I'll have them perform what I call a crab bridge prior to the start of their table bridge. Now, my version of the crab bridge is predominantly a stability exercise. Now, for your learning, I should share with you that my definition of stability is to stop motion in one or another location in the presence of motion somewhere else. We look at core training or training that we're doing for our trunk. The vertical quadruped, which you're practicing today, is a great example. The goal of that exercise is, and the goal of all good core training, is to stop motion in our trunk, in the center of our body, right? So The goal of all of these tissues as we're moving through exercises and even in our sport training is stillness around this area to allow our extremities to move freely to run, swim, bike, or what have you. So many of the stability exercises that I'll typically share with athletes, and the vertical quadruped, which I've shared with you as one, is about creating stillness here while moving our extremities and challenging our bodies dynamically to maintain that stillness. So if I come up into that table bridge position, all right, I've got a neutral low back, got my core engaged. What's one way that I could challenge stability in this position and effectively see whether or not I can go from a 4-point stance to a 3-point stance? And one way that I could do that would be to lift one foot. The key here, of course, is that nothing else can change, shift, or move. Just like with the vertical quadruped, you got to maintain that integration and that connection and that full core engagement and that stillness. So I'm going to go ahead and lift one foot. Nothing changes in terms of its position. Keep the back engaged. Go to the other side. I'm going to lift one foot. Nothing changes in terms of position. All right. So I would consider that sort of a level 1 as far as the crab bridge is concerned. The more challenging movement is to do the same thing with the arms. So I want to make sure I get my feet hip width apart, get good shoulder engagement, and then test my ability to come up with nothing moving with that arm, and then back again. So, if you're looking for an additional challenge, I highly recommend you start to work on the crab bridge as a sort of a lead-in to your table bridge. That will bring in a stability and a hip core stability oriented element to the movement before getting right into that table bridge. All right, hope this helps. Let me know how you're doing. Have a great day. Thank you very much for watching.